Okay, Nancy, well,
You ready?
we can edit out whatever we want. I just started it though, so you start her off.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Well, today we're in Brady, Texas. It's May 20th, 2012, and I'm with Jewel Jones Yarborough here in the backyard of her house on High Street. And we're going to talk a little bit about Jones' history and Jewel Jones in particular. So, Aunt Jewel, you want to give me a little bit of information about, first off, your family, your mom and dad maybe, and you know, a little bit about childhood, yeah.
Well, I was born in 1920, September the 17th. And I had a twin brother, and we were we made 8 kids. There were 6 ahead of us. Mm-hmm. 4 boys and 1 girl. 2 girls. Nay and sis. And we lived out north of town about 5 miles, I guess, or 6. I was born on the Huffman place, but the house that I was born in, it's not the one we lived in is not there either, but the windmill and some of the buildings still there.
How come you were born in the Huffman house and not your own home?
Well, it's called the Huffman house.
Oh,
but we lived there.
You were renting it from them.
Well, my dad farmed. I think they called it 3rd and 4th. You got a 3rd, or somebody got a 4th, or something like that, way back then.
Kind of
Yeah, He didn't own the land, but he farmed it.
Gave them a certain percentage of it.
And that went on for, I don't really know how many years we lived there, but I don't remember living in the house I was born in. But we lived there. And I was 7 years older than Janie, so I know she was born in that house. So we lived there a few years after she was born. So
the doctor came out to the house to
yeah, that's the way they did then. The doctors came out. If they didn't have any money, they'd give them a chicken or
I'll pay them
a
that
dozen
way.
eggs or a pound of butter. So we lived there for a long time, and then I don't know why we left, but my dad leased another place, and we moved to another place.
Still on the out.
Kids were living at home at that time. Was everybody still living at home?
No, Yule and I and Wayne and Janie. The rest of them was gone. All of them was married except Nay. She wasn't married. And
the house that you moved to, did it have indoor plumbing, or was that also?
We never had indoor plumbing when we lived in the country.
Okay.
We didn't have indoor plumbing till I think we moved into town in 36 or maybe 37, 1936.
No electricity out there either?
No.
No.
We had real pretty lamps though, and they had pretty globes on them, and we had to clean them every week. That was our
Oil?
Yeah, just kerosene.
Kerosene.
And we had to clean those globes and wipe them off, and the bottom of the lamps always had a little stand up so high, and then a little round place that you put kerosene in, and that was usually had flowers or some kind of decorations on it. And then your globe, just like a globe now you see. Well, I've got some lamps in there that's got kind of the same shape, little globes. But they'd get dirty, and the oil had caused them to get turned black and smutty looking, you know. So we had to clean them every week. And we had water. Never could figure out one place we lived. We had a big barn, much bigger than our house.
Oh.
Of course, then they all had to store their grain. They had to have their horse stalls and cow pens and stuff. And we had water to the barn, and the barn was about from that house over there to our house, or maybe a little further. Why they never piped it up to the house, I don't know. We had to carry the water. Go down there.
Pump outside?
No, we didn't even have a pump. No? We had to go. We didn't get it from the barn. Why we didn't, I don't know, because it's piped up there, except it went into a tank type thing for the cattle to drink out of.
So where would you get your water?
We had to go back south about 100 yards further to get.
Was there a well?
There was a windmill there.
Oh.
That windmill's still there.
Huh.
And we had an old, what we call a sled, and we had that old little jackass we pulled him with. I'll show you that one because it's in those pictures.
Oh, So a donkey.
Yeah, it's a donkey. We'd just put the harness on him, and he'd pull the sled. We'd ride on there too, maybe be on his back.
Was that a daily event, or how often would you?
Well, just about a daily event because you had to cook, and then if on wash day, that was usually on a Monday, we had to go 2 or 3 times to get wash water.
And you had to bathe.
I thought about that so much, yeah. Why in the world I didn't pipe that water from the cow trough up to the house, but never did. And then, I don't know, the other place, I keep thinking about the last house we lived in before we moved to town. It was a pretty nice house, but it didn't have a bathroom with running water. I think we had water at the house there, but I'm not sure. It's just we didn't live there that many years, and I just don't remember.
Just an outhouse then?
Yeah.
What'd you do for cooking? Was it wood stove?
Always wood stove. Yeah. You had to cut wood and bring it in. And we had a fancy, back then they called them fancy wood stoves. They had a top on them and 2 little ovens up here, and you could pull down and store your food. And it had 4, they looked like burners like on the stove, except but you could take that lid off, especially in the firebox to build your fire. You lifted that up and put it back down.
So it was like a grate, kind of.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of cast iron stoves, and they had a big oven. We had the oven was big enough that Mama had a great big pan. It had the bottom and a rack. I think it just had 1 rack in it, what I remember. But she had a big pan that I think it held 32 biscuits. And she'd make that pan full every meal that she cooked biscuits. It was full. And
wow. Well, tell me a little bit about your mother. I never really knew. Was she outgoing? Was she, gregarious, or was she kind of quiet?
She's kind of quiet. Yeah.
Was she warm and fuzzy? Was she sweet, or was she kind of more?
No, she was real kind, and she's a good cook, and she's good. All the kids, everybody loved her. And like we'd go to church, and that's why we always had so many kids go home with her, because she spoiled everybody.
So she just invited everyone to come.
I don't know how she cooked like she did. I don't know how she even fed us, let alone a company. But she'd always make up on Saturdays. I guess she cooked all day. But we always had desserts for Sunday, and we had lots of meals at the church on Sunday. All families did. And but that's what.
Was your dad outgoing? Which one was outgoing, and so your mom was kind of quiet, but sweet.
They weren't either one rowdy, and I never did. My dad never drank. The only time that I remember them ever having anything alcohol would be at Christmas time. And maybe they'd make a little eggnog. They thought that was a tradition to have eggnog. And they made it then you used a bunch of eggs and the heavy cream, and of course I had both of that. All I had to do is buy a little
bourbon or whatever,
bourbon, whatever they put in it. And I know they'd let us kids taste of it, Of course, I don't think they put anything in it for us. We just probably had the
egg and the heavy cream,
tasting of eggnog.
What was their favorite foods? What would be their favorite meals? Do you remember?
I don't know. I imagine it was probably lunch. Because, of course, Mama got up every morning, and I guess we had hot cakes and back then she made up that hot cake dough. So you didn't have it, you couldn't go to the store and buy it already mixed. You had to make your own.
Big breakfast?
Yeah. Or have sausage and eggs and biscuits, cream gravy. Of course, they raised we had all of our eggs. She never bought eggs, never bought milk. And back then we had what they called a separator. And you'd put your milk, and it had a big basket tank up on top of this separator, and it had a bunch of little, what would you call them? You stacked them like little,
filters, or?
that let the milk run through, and it separate. Yeah, kind of on that order. We had to wash them. I don't remember. I think there's 20 some odd kind of little disc type thing.
Oh.
And we had to clean and wash it every time you used it, have it ready for the next time. And they had to be put in just right, or that would run over. Your milk would run over the top and.
Oh, so you had to be precise. Yeah.
Yeah, it had numbers on there or something, and we kids had to learn to put it together right. Sometimes somebody goofed. We'd have a mess. And
well, it sounds like you were probably put to work pretty early to do things around the house.
We did.
So they were farmers and ranchers?
Yeah. Well, we had sheep and goats, some. We mostly had cattle and horses back then. When I first remember, I guess I was probably 10 or 12 when I remember, no, maybe 8 or 9, that the tractors came in. Farmers all started buying tractors, so my dad got a tractor, and we didn't have all those horses then. We had horses we rode, which if you'll bring those pictures out here, I can show you some of those.
Okay.
That box, and that's on the here, you can go in this door right here. It's open.
Being filmed then. I was trying to avoid that scene.
Well, did your dad, mom and dad, did they have a car? They bought a tractor, but did they have a car?
Oh yeah, we had a car. I guess when I was born, they had a car, but I can remember the buggies, horse and buggies.
Oh, you do?
The horses and we kids rode horses when we was little, you know. But I can remember the buggies, but I don't remember that we traveled to church in them. Mm-hmm. But I know we had some pictures and all, some of them. And okay. Let me see where I had some of these separated a little bit.
So Aunt Jewell, was most of the income, family income, do you think was from farming or from ranching, or was it just a little bit of both?
Well, a little bit of both.
What kind of crops did
my
you raise?
dad back then, it was just, now there, that's out there on our place. That's down at the barn or something, some old shed or something. This is our little donkey we had.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where I was. I wasn't on the picture, but this is Raymond, my oldest brother's son. And he is a year older than Janie. No, not a year. Let's see, her birthday's in March. Yeah, I think he was nearly a year older than her. And that's Wayne and you all, and I don't know who this kid is.
There's Mom.
But I think that's Janie right there.
She's got
I'm not
blonde
in
hair.
the picture.
We'll have to get a picture of that. We'll add it to the video.
Okay. Well, then you moved into town, though, Aunt Jewell, when you were...
I think we moved in 36 or 38.
What caused the family to move to the town? Were you just not
Well,
making
that
money
was the
farming,
depression, and you couldn't make any money doing anything, actually. And my dad just quit farming and leasing the place.
And just decided that there would be something better in town.
So he came to town, got a job, and all we kids. I remember I wasn't big enough to do, but we had to help iron. We did everything out there with Mama.
So you took care of the house, basically.
Yeah, Nay and I had to clean house when school was out on Fridays. We had to do it Saturday morning, clean lampshades and do all that. And
Did you have a vacuum cleaner back then? Was it all
no, we just had an old broom
Yeah.
and wood floors. I keep thinking, dude, they coming up with all these wood floors. I think, how crazy are you? I went through that.
Aunt Jewell, tell us about, with no indoor plumbing, bath time. Would you do a big tub of water once a week or something?
Well, yeah, or anytime you could. Now
would you go down to a creek, or what would you do?
we just had a mud tank, and we didn't. Well, if it rained a lot, we had a lot of water in it, and we could go down there and wade, and the boys would go swimming, the older ones. But I never learned to swim. No, they called them a number 3 bathtub. And they were pretty good round sized tub, not big as this table, really. But you could sit down in them, and we had to warm our own water, and we'd get it boiling hot, and then we'd add water to it. And then when you got through that bath, you didn't really throw that water out.
What would you do with it?
Mom would throw it on the kitchen floor and mop the floor with it.
Oh,
And then sweep it out.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. We never had a house when we lived in the country that had electricity. We just had, and the first thing before they had electricity in the country was some kind of a machine that make electric. But it was, I know at the church they finally bought one, and every Sunday night when they turned that thing on, it would probably go off. Somebody had to go down there and start it again. What did they call it?
Was it like a generator?
Kind of on that order.
Yeah.
I guess it did have a generator. It had a name for it, but I've forgotten what they called them.
So you wouldn't have had a radio, for example?
No.
No.
Wow.
We didn't have a radio till we moved into town.
Yeah.
And we got a radio. And we didn't have a TV till, Mom never had a TV because she died before we got it. And it was 1950, I think 56, 50. Mom died in 54. And I think it's 50, 55, 56, something like that, on Papa's birthday. It was in October, and he always liked to listen to the World Series, and it always started about the 1st of October. And so I went down and I told Jack and Warren that I was going to get that for Papa's birthday. And the World Series started on his birthday that year, on the 3rd of October. And so I told him I was going to have some work, the lights, the light fixtures all checked in the house and the wiring, and see if everything's all right. But what they were up there doing was wiring it for a TV.
Oh.
And I told the guys that was doing it, I said, you don't dare tell him that you're putting in a TV, because he's going to be... So then I brought that TV, they had the TV delivered, and he said, oh my Lord, I'll never watch that thing. Said, just take it back. You don't need to spend money on that. And I said, well, you might like it. The World Series is coming up. So Warren and Jack came by, and they got it going, turned it on. Man, he was glued to that thing till the day he died.
That must have been an expensive present. How much? Do you remember how much that cost back then?
I think it was $170 something.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah. It was just a one that sat on a table, but it was I don't know what those screens were when they first, 18, 20 each or something like that.
It was smaller than that.
Well, I had a little one, but I got a pretty good size one.
Did you?
Yeah, it was nice.
Wow.
I had bought him a new chair and a new couch we called it a screened-in porch, but it was glassed in. We'd glassed it in. And it had windows all the way around. And it was the biggest room in the house. And they had Mom and Papa used that for their bedroom. And but it was big enough to have a couch. I had a big couch in there, a leather couch with, it made a bed. And then it had a big chair with it. And he sat in that chair.
Oh.
And so I'd go home, and I don't know how many times what was that guy that had all that music? The Beatles came in. I had the radio station.
Ed Sullivan?
Ed Sullivan show. And then there was another one, and a Western he liked real well. And he'd get so excited that he'd be standing up just rooting for whatever it was. Everybody in the family caught him doing that, and he didn't know anybody was around, but it was so funny to watch him. He got so excited. Well, he really never needed to say he didn't want that TV to go back. After
Yes.
I got it.
Got a taste of it and he liked it,
He
huh?
really liked it.
That's nice.
And I had a lady that went in, finally, he wasn't doing too well, and I hired this lady to go take him, to fix our lunch, because I just couldn't get off to go fix lunch.
Uh-huh.
And or fix a decent lunch. So she would cook lunch for us and clean up the kitchen. So, and during the World Series, I told her, I said, well, fix enough for Warren and Jack, because they're going to be over every day to eat.
That was one of the first TVs in your family then?
No, Tim bought the first one.
Oh.
And I don't think, Sis and Jack didn't have one at that time, but they got one right after that, and I don't think Warren and Edith had one.
Huh.
So they, we just didn't have, after World War II, we didn't have a lot of things. So, and you couldn't get them here.
Uh-huh.
They just didn't have them, but after World War II, they started making all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And that's when the REA took over and started building all electricals out in the country. And now everybody in the country has the same thing we have in town.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people have real nice homes, too, that didn't have back then. But
when you moved into town, who moved with you? Was it Mom and just you and Mom?
Wayne and Ewell and Janie and myself.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else was already in town and married.
Out on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just we. And we moved in a little house on North Bridge. It's not there anymore. And lived there. And then they bought the old house where we lived for 100 years. It's just falling in now.
Pine Street.
But it had 4 bedrooms and a big dining room, pretty good sized kitchen. We had a little table we ate off of in the kitchen. And the living room was big enough. That's my phone, Jay.
I get it. You just keep talking.
Okay.
Well, and so it was a good sized house.
Yeah,
so he
was a
bought
good
it.
one.
He didn't rent it. That was the first house he really bought then, huh?
Yeah, that's the first house they ever bought. My parents ever bought.
The
only house they ever bought.
He must have been doing okay by then to be able to buy a little house then.
Well, when they moved to town, he worked for a while, and then they put in we had that restaurant, the Riverside over there that's by that bridge on the north side.
Well, I didn't get there in time, and they didn't leave a message.
Huh.
I bet it was Lisa or
Could have been.
Diane, one of them, Colin.
Huh. So you moved into town, and did everyone get? Did you and Mom share a room then in that house? Do you remember if you shared a bedroom with Mom?
No.
You got your own room?
Then Nay, after she was living in San Antonio. She had married and they divorced, and she didn't have any kids. And she was doing beauty work. She went to beauty school, made beauty operator. She didn't like it, so she moved back to Brady, and she lived back home. She moved back home. So I worked. Janie never did. She helped some at that restaurant, but she didn't help like I did. I'd take my lunch hour. I don't know if her lunch hour I don't think was the same time mine was, but I was there to help during and they served family style meals too, and the same ones would come every day to eat. At the same time.
What a family style meal is.
Well, you put just like you set the table. They sit down. You give them their plates and their drinks and their silverware, and you put the food on the table in the bowls, and they pass it around and get what they want.
They just paid one price to come in
and she fixed meat. She put a big platter of meat, and what she thought I think there'd be about 10 or 12 sit down at the same time. And then. So
you weren't ordering off a menu. It's just whatever was there.
Just whatever she fixed that day. Yeah. And they'd eat, and then that's gone. But then later in the day, like breakfast, they fix breakfast, and then they fix sandwiches and stuff like that at evening.
Dinner?
Yeah, at the evenings they did. They closed pretty early.
Okay. No evening meal then?
No.
Yeah.
For the dinner. Yeah. They had the breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And Aunt Jewell, when did you get involved in the dry cleaning business? How did that?
Well, I married in 1940. And that was a bad mistake.
You were 20 years old.
Yeah. And I moved out on the,
That microphone's going to just pick up, it won't pick up anything if you're
I got playing with it.
Yeah.
Did I knock it over?
well, no, it just won't pick up anything.
Anyway, we lived together, I guess, maybe 2.5 years. I don't remember. It wasn't very long. And I just had enough of it, and I just got in the car and came to town and never went back.
So it wasn't a match. Well, that's okay. No kids, no, you know.
No love lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
Did you start working at a dry cleaner at that point, or what?
I did. I had just, up until then, I worked at Perry's variety store a little bit. I had 2 jobs. I worked there on weekends some and on holidays. And then I worked in it was the biggest restaurant in town. It's over there where Lentz is, on that side, right in there where, well, part of the building, I think the Lentz building was part of it. And something else was in there too, I don't remember. There's a bakery used to be on that side too. And I worked in there, but then I decided, and then I quit work when I got married, and I didn't work. And that was a mistake. But anyway, I came back, when I came back into town, I moved back in home with her at home. And I went to work. This guy, I knew this guy that had the cleaners, and he came over to the house one day, wanted to know if I needed a job. And I said, well, I need one, but I don't have one. He said, well, he'd like to hire me. So I went to work for him, and that was, I don't know, 43, I think, something like that. 42, 43. And I liked it. I just learned everything in there. And then in 48, bought him. He sold to a guy that had been in service. And he got out of the service, and he thought he'd like it. Well, he didn't like it because all he had on his mind was flying an airplane. And it.
So you bought it from the second guy then? In 48?
1948.
Okay.
And then Wayne was in with me. And he was out of the service too. And those guys, they just couldn't settle down. Wayne was as bad as the guy that I bought, wanted to sell us, that had bought the cleaners to start with. He was a pilot in the war. And he came through at Curtis Field out here, trained, and he married a Brady girl. And then after the war, he just moved here, back here, started, her dad was a big rancher here. And so he never did, he went into business, but he didn't like it. And he was the type of guy that he was the cutest thing in the world. And he just, one day he came by, and there's another guy that had been in the Navy, Harold Andrews, and he told Harold and me, he said, come go with me. Well, I said, well, David Quinn was his name. I said, we got a lot of clothes to get out of here. I need to stay here and help get these clothes out. Oh no. I said, I've got something I want to show you guys. We got in the car and went with him. We went to the airport, and we got in his airplane and flew around a while. He just wanted to
fly around,
fly around. Came back, and I said, well, we did that several times.
So finally you decided just to buy him out,
And, yeah, one day he said, why don't you buy me out? I said, well, I don't have any money and to buy you out. And he said, well, it wouldn't take very much. But back then he didn't give a lot for it either, and we didn't either. So I went checking around. We got the money together.
And you and Wayne at the time bought him out?
Yeah, we bought it out on the half. Well, he took half and I took half. Well, I'll be darned. He would not, he just couldn't settle down. He would not, well, he'd show up at work, but I couldn't depend on him for nothing. And that rocked on for a while. And then of course, all those guys came back from the war. They were heavy drinkers, most of them, all of them. Wayne, you all both were, and David Quinn was too. But Wayne, he wanted to bring his beer or whatever to work, and I said, it's not going to work. I'm not going to do your job. You're going to work as hard as I do, or we're going to part ways. And then he had that bad car wreck.
Oh.
And, 50. Well, he stayed in there a good while.
What year did you buy him out?
I don't remember.
Huh?
It was in 48 when we bought him out, but
What happened?
early 50s. He was in a car wreck and almost killed him. I don't know how he lived.
So he was out of work for quite some time.
Oh yeah, he was really bad for a while. He and another guy that was in service, they were just out drinking, and Wayne wasn't driving, but the other guy was, and they were on the Old Mason Road, what we call on Old Mason Road, and this kid had a new car, and they said he was just flying, and he come around a curve and hit a culvert, one of those concrete slab things, flipped the car, throwed them both out.
Wow.
I don't know how, both of them, they stayed in the hospital forever.
Wow.
And Wayne knocked all of his teeth loose, and the doctor priest, he was really a good dentist here, and he wired all of his mouth together and wired those teeth back in, and I swear if it didn't work.
Huh.
How, I don't know.
That was lucky.
Yeah.
That was lucky. Well, by then he was married to Aunt Money, right?
Yeah, and Johnny and Susan both were, but Susan was a baby.
Uh-huh.
And Johnny was 4 years older than Susan.
Well, then you ended up having, the business was basically yours by then.
Well,
right?
I don't remember just what year I bought him out. He come in one day and he said, you want to buy me out? And I said, sure do. If you don't want to go to work. We got so far behind, and I worked so hard, and I'd work at night. And this Delmer Bell, a friend of ours, he had a feed store, and he worked late at night and always, well, I think they just had that as a hangout to drink and gamble, really, drinking more than anything else. And I had this colored guy, I can't remember his name. I want to say T-Bone, but I don't know if it was T-Bone or not. He worked at another dry cleaning. We had 5 cleaners when I started.
Wow.
And I stayed till I bought, is that phone again?
Beth will get that.
You could have gone through this door.
It's only on the second ring. Hopefully she can pick it up.
I hope so.
We can edit
But you had
this.
5 stores, huh?
Well, I had 5 cleaners in town.
Oh,
I don't know how we made a living.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really, I don't.
Huh.
But then, let's see, one guy, 2 of them, they just kept retiring, drifting out.
Little by little they went
You
away,
didn't buy
huh?
them out. They just kind of left the business.
Only one I bought one out after I bought Mr. Carlson. I bought in Mason. There were 2 over there when I went down there. But I bought one out down there, and then I had it all by myself in Mason. Really had a good business.
Well, Aunt Jewell, tell us about you've told me before, the contracts you had with Air Force Base, and how much would you get for a pair of pants or a
Jay,
a shirt or something?
I think the pants were 50 cents, I think, during World War II. I think they were.
That had to have been
35.
That had to have been a good contract.
Well, it was good. They brought they had these big covered trucks, and they had hangers, racks in them. And they would bring them up, and I think they came twice a week. And they had the bomber jackets, shirts, ties, and pants. That's all you had. And they were easy to do. Which one was that one?
That was Lisa, and she said not to count on her for pizza, but they would be by later to say goodbye.
Oh, okay. Anyway, they would load up, but they would. Sometime I'd be down there at midnight loading them up, because I don't know whether they went somewhere else or they just after got off of work they came up here. I don't know why they was running late all the time.
Now you worked, would you work, 5 days a week, 6 days a week? What would you have to work?
6 days a week, and we worked all day Saturday. And, well, I didn't clean on Saturdays, but I had the shop open, and I ran it myself. I didn't pay anybody to come in and work.
On Saturday?
I used to close, well, back then there's a grocery store by me, Wigginton's grocery store. And they stayed open late, and there's a shoe shop and saddle shops and drugstore was in there, and they all stayed open. We all stayed open until 7 o'clock
on Saturday.
7 on Saturdays.
So Sunday was really your only day off then.
And I never did have Saturdays off until I bought Mr. Carlson out, and he stayed open all day, and I did too for a long time. And then I started closing at noon on Saturdays. And that's the way it was when I sold out. I still stayed open till
noon.
On Saturdays. But I didn't do any cleaning or anything. You just took clothes in, they picked up and dropped off.
Well, the town of Brady, it sounds like, got a bit bigger and more prosperous and more shops and stuff after the war then, is that right?
Well, no, Brady always, there used to be a store, something in every building around the square, and up Blackburn Street to the post office there. Every building there by me was full. We had a car on the north end of me with a car agency. We had a drugstore. We had a boots shoe store.
Was this in the 40s or 50s, or when was it?
That was in the 40s.
Okay.
And 50s.
Okay.
And all of those buildings were full. There was a service station across the street, a dental office.
What about in the 60s? Even in the 60s, it seemed like the square had full occupancy and stuff.
I tell you, when they all moved out was when Walmart, whatever year Walmart came in, they rent the town because they put a lot of business out of town.
So you feel like that's when the downtown area kind of got
I know it was. They just, Walmart, could outsell all of them.
That was in the
go cheaper, and
that was in the 80s sometime, wasn't it?
I think
it was not in the 70s. I know that because we were there in the 70s. It had to have been in the 80s.
Yeah, it had gone down some, but there were still quite a few businesses left that was not there now.
But once Walmart came in, that just kind of did it for them, huh?
Sure did.
Well, you were at the dry cleaners owned the dry cleaners for a lot of years.
Well, we had in Mason I was, and in Menard I was, and Eden I only had one in Menard. Well, there were 2 in Menard. I bought one out over there, and I bought one out in Mason.
But you still took time. You came and visited us in Georgia, I know. Yeah. You still took little vacations here and there.
But that's the only time I ever took vacations. I went for years that the help always got a paid vacation. But the only time I was off was holidays. Unless I wasn't able to go, and I don't remember ever being sick and not able to go.
So you really were hands-on with the dry cleaners, and you really had to run it day to day.
I did. I was always, and when I first started, I remember the solvent was like 9 to 10 cents a gallon, and when I left, I was paying 2 something a gallon. And I didn't own the building. I rented the building that I first started out in. I think I paid $35 a month. And
what was your final rent when you quit? Do you remember what it was each month?
Oh, I bought that building.
Oh, okay.
I bought it. So I owned the building.
Did you sell that when you sold the business?
Yeah, I did. I sold it. I sold it all in a lump sum. And I just put the package all together as the Menard and the pickup station.
Sold it as one big thing. Can you think of anything else, Jay?
Well, Aunt Jewell, take a few minutes here and just kind of start with the oldest siblings and tell us a little bit about each one of the brothers and sisters.
Well, Milton was the oldest, and he had his wife's name was Alice, and they had 2 children. A boy and a girl, and
So
he always, Pecos and Renee, and he always worked on a ranch. There's his son and daughter, right there. That's son and Renee.
And he lived in. He didn't live in Brady though.
No, he never moved till they retired, and his wife she had been sick a long time before she died. Mm-hmm. And she was out here in this nursing home, and then he was too.
Oh,
And he only lived 2 or 3 weeks. He took pneumonia and died after she died.
Wow. Wow.
Very short time. Might have been
And they're
6 weeks.
They're buried.
They're buried in the old cemetery.
Live Oak?
Live Oak.
Okay. And then your next oldest one was Golden? And was he?
That's Mabel Ruth's dad.
Right.
And he was the chief of police here a long time.
Was he very serious? Was he a joker, or what was he like?
Well, he was a sweetheart.
Okay.
There he is right there with Ruthie.
Uh-huh.
And that's Wayne when he was in after World War II. And
that looks like Mabel Ruth.
yeah.
And
And then Sis, Jackie's mom. Mm-hmm. She was the next one. Mm-hmm. Hattie.
And she married Jack.
She married Jack, and they had Jackie and Donnie.
Right, right.
I'm giving an interview here. I'm going to be on candid camera.
And Auntie was Pearl.
Yeah.
Was very sweet.
Yeah, she was fine.
Yeah.
She could get madder than hell. You can ask Jackie and Donnie that.
So she had the Jones temper as well, then,
Oh,
did she?
she had it bad. Diane remembers some of that, don't you, Diane?
Yes, I do.
And then from her it was Warren.
Uh-huh.
And he had George W.
He was married to Aunt Edith.
Yeah.
Now, was he serious, or was he...
No, he was wishy-washy all the time.
Oh, okay. So Aunt Edith got to run the show then, and she was pretty much the boss of that family. Aunt
Warren
Edith
was a person that if he just never could get nothing going.
Huh.
He worked, he was a good hand, and he wound up okay, but he was the type of person, if he borrowed something, he knew that was the end of it, unless you went and got it. If you loaned him money,
You'd never see it
never
again?
got it. I remember he come to me one day, and that was in the 50s or something, I guess, late 40s anyway. I didn't have any money, and I had a hell of a time trying to buy me a car. Wayne and Ewell got it one time from me, and then Warren comes along. I was saving up some more. He came by and he said, "I've just got to have $150. Could you let me borrow $150? And I said, "No, because I don't have it." And he said, "Well, I sure do need it." And I said, "Well, go to the bank." No, I don't guess he could borrow any money there. But anyway, I wound up giving him $150, and I said, "Well, how are you going to pay it back?" "I'll pay you back every week. I'll pay you some money." Till this day, I've never seen a dime. He's dead and gone.
Maybe he remembered you in the will, and when Aunt Edith dies, you'll collect. You never know.
That's a sad thing. No, that'll never happen. But anyway, this stuff like that went on.
Yeah, okay. Well, that helps describe him. I'm not sure how happy he'd be about that story. But after Warren, who was next?
It was Tim.
Okay.
Cadron and Sherry's dad.
Right. So he was married to Aunt Gertie.
Yeah.
And what was Uncle Tim like?
Well, he was high-tempered, but he was a hard worker, and he never asked you for anything. He was independent like me.
So he was self-sufficient and a hard worker.
Yeah.
And okay.
And well, they all worked hard.
Ran the mohair plant?
No, it was the Farmers and Ranchers Co-op.
Yeah.
Well, they bought wool over there, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And I guess mohair too. I don't remember. They had mohair. I know they had wool. I think they did. He managed that for a while, and then Tim got in bad health real young. Golden did too. How old was Golden when he died? He was just 60-something, wasn't he?
I don't know exactly because I was so young.
Yeah. Were you born when he?
He died in 1969 or 68. I can't remember.
So like his first grade, I think, when he passed away.
Yeah. I was traumatized because that was the first time my mom had ever left us, and I remember she left us for like a week to go back to here for the funeral, and I cried every night. I couldn't take it. So I do remember it was either 60
Died of emphysema.
Yeah, he died of emphysema.
He did.
But let's go back to Tim. Or who are we on? Tim.
Well,
Tim died of emphysema as well, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think he suffered longer than Golden did. He was, but they both died too young.
Yeah.
And then from them was Nay. Then she had it.
Right. And she was in her early 60s when she died, I think.
I believe 68, I think. 68.
Yeah.
And she had it. Well, she lived, when she moved from Houston back up here, she lived with me 3 years, 8 months, and 15 days. And hated my guts every day. She did. I don't know why that woman hated me. We never did get along. And I don't know why she moved in with me, but she blamed me seemed like she just blamed me for her being sick.
Well, what was her disposition in general like? Was she not a very happy person in general?
No, she never was happy. I think you could ask anybody in the family. She was never a happy camper.
She just kind of had a chip on her shoulder then about something? Or?
I think so. I never could figure her out.
So she was not outgoing or happy-go-lucky or any of that then?
No.
She just was not a happy person then?
No, poor thing wasn't. She really wasn't.
That's kind of sad. She never had children?
No.
And
then came the twins. And I don't know what we interrupted. Everything, I guess. And then Wayne and Janie.
Right. Well, tell us about Uncle Yule. You've often said that he kind of changed when he came back from the war.
Well,
you felt
he and Wayne both were, so different when they came back.
So they were drinking kind of heavily at that point, even.
Yule was just
bad.
He drank an awful lot of beer.
Yeah.
In fact, he was just an alcoholic. Wayne was too.
Yeah. There's no good spin you can put on that one then, huh?
And Wayne, I fired him 3 times before he got out of the business.
Just because he was just drinking and you couldn't count on him?
And I had an ice box in there, and they'd go to lunch first, everybody, and I'd always be the last one to go to lunch. And I had an ice box in the back of the building, and he'd always come through. I had a back door and a side door and a front door. And he'd always bring his beer in with him. And I just got, about a little after lunch, he would be lit up, you know. Quitting time, he couldn't drive. I just got so mad at him. And
that couldn't be good, working those heavy irons and those presses, and
I just get so mad at him, and I fired him, and he stayed off a week. And I think I made a believer out of him, but it didn't last very long. He started the same old thing over. Of course, I know you was in bad health, but I couldn't, that drinking that much beer wasn't helping either.
Yeah.
And especially on the job, if you want a paycheck. And then he got where he couldn't work and do anything, but he took early retirement. Well, with his health, he could get his Social Security. But after he finally quit, it was over a year. I'd have to go back and look it up, that he didn't work a day, but I gave him a check every week.
Wow. Well, so he wasn't retired at that point? He wasn't taking the Social Security?
Yeah, he did. He got his Social Security a little earlier on account of his health.
Oh, okay.
I forgot what year he died.
I don't know the year.
If Mabel Rose was alive, she could tell you a lot of it.
Mid-80s, late 80s?
I'd have to, I forgot what year it was.
Well, then, okay, so that was Wayne, and then Mom was born, and Mom was after Wayne, and we already know Mom's history pretty well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when, she stayed with the Huffmans for, I know, 6 months or longer, that Miss Huffman nursed her with her youngest son. And
literally nursed her?
Yeah.
Breastfed her? Nursed her?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because she was like a milk cow, they said, and Mama didn't have enough anything, and she almost died.
Right.
And so.
Wow.
They kept her for a long time. They wanted to adopt her, but they didn't give her up.
Yeah. Well,
she had a good upbringing when she was a baby. They had Mr. and Miss Upton had 4 boys. And they had 5 boys, but Tammy Jean died when he was about 2 years old. I don't remember what was wrong with him, but he was I think he was a little older than Janie, between the other boy and the one that Jimmy that was born. He and Janie were real close together.
Was Mom a quiet child, or was she more
spoiled, I guess you'd say.
Oh, being the youngest.
Yeah, because everybody just
doted on her.
Yeah, she didn't have to do anything. We all carried her around on the feather pillow. But she was a cute little girl. And then when she went to school, started school, well, things changed.
So she got enough
attention. She never had to work anything. I don't remember her ever doing it. Well, yes, when we got up, before we all left home, finally, she did have to clean house, same as Janie and Nana. She had her chores too. We split that. But then we decided we hired, we three, we wasn't paying rent, but we was paying everything. We paid all the utilities, bought all the groceries, and paid for everything. And we decided we was tired of cleaning the house, so we hired this little cutter lady, Miss, what was that little lady's name? She was real cute. And back then they wore white uniforms, or a white apron, come to do your house. We probably paid her $5 a week.
Very minimal, much. Yeah.
But she's clean one day a week.
That's awesome. So you pooled your money.
So we thought we three pooled our money. We had a little left that we could afford to have it done.
You figured that one out, didn't you?
But we had a lot of fun back then too.
Good.
And then I and Janie decided, that was, I forgot what year that was. They were Janie just got out of high school, and they sent her to Austin to take a business course, and they decided to go, and they went and stayed together and took it at the same time. And so it didn't, I don't think, too many months, maybe 9 months. I don't remember back then how long it took. Johnny was good at shorthand though, and it's her first job, that's why. I never could understand shorthand. And I moved to Houston, went to work for a big company down there, and stayed there till she couldn't work anymore.
Yeah, so she pretty much, her adult life was
in Houston. And Johnny went to Angelo, and then she met John. Who was that came up in a red? Was that Lisa?
That's Diane.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah.
You too. Yeah.
Were you going to ask her a question, Jay?
Well, at some point, Aunt Jewell, tell us about Uncle Gerald. How you met Uncle Gerald? And
Oh, darn fish fry.
Was it a July Jubilee fish fry type thing?
No. It was on I don't know, it just in the early
80s?
Summer started, back in 84. Or 80, 84. And I was with the Chamber of Commerce, and we was raising money for something, selling some tickets to do something. I guess maybe it's getting ready for the goat cook-off or something. I don't remember what month it was. And I was up at Mike Shan's. That's when they were still up here on the corner, selling tickets. And Sue and Kenneth Gage, she worked for Dean Taft. You remember her?
Yeah.
She took old Dean for cleaning. She was sleeping with him at the time. Finally wound up with all his money. But anyway.
You know all the Brady history, Aunt Joe.
We had a little Peyton place back then. But anyway, they were having a fish fry. And I knew her, and she was a good customer of mine. And she came in the grocery store and said, "What are you going to be doing tonight?" And I said, "I'm going home when I get through here, I don't know." And that's when they had the dance floor in the bar out here as you go to the park. Chaps, that's what it's called. They had that, and she said, "Well, we got a friend coming in," and said his cousin to Ken, said, "for a fish fry tonight, and why don't you come up, we'd like for you to meet him." I said, oh, I don't think so. She said, oh, well, come on. This won't hurt you. If you don't like it, just doesn't your business. So we're all going to go out and dance tonight at Chaps. And I said, so I went on home and I called her and told her I didn't think I'd come. And then she said, oh, yes, you are. I'm going to come down there and get you. So anyway, I wound up at their house. And I met him that night, and I liked his brother. He was married, but I liked him. That's why I more liked him.
Well, did you go to Chaps and go dancing?
Yeah,
then?
we went out that night, all of us, and danced. And
then did he get your number?
Oh, he came back in 2 weeks, and we started seeing each other. I kept saying no.
And then you said
we got married, but we did.
Because you said yes at some point.
I guess so.
Well, when did you met him in '84 and you married him in '84 then?
I think we met in the spring of '84 and we got married in
Aunt Jewell.
November
of '84. Okay.
On 23rd of November.
Oh, right around Thanksgiving.
That was you and Helen's wedding anniversary.
Oh. I don't know if I would have chosen that one. That sounds like bad luck.
Well, it hadn't been too good. Started throwing the towel a few times.
Well, here you are, 30 years later, just about, 28 years later. 27.
27, I guess. Oh, it's had ups and downs, but I guess it's been okay.
Seems like you have reached a very nice point in your marriage, though. It seems like you have a really nice way of living together.
Well, you know, I think this could go down in history, and this is honest to God's truth. When we got married, we never mentioned money-wise. You know, I had my thing and he had his. Mm-hmm. He paid his way and I paid mine. Till this day, it's still that way. Wow. He's never gave me any money. I've never gave a check on him. Now, can you know of anyone that's been married that long that didn't give a check on their husband? And he never gave you.
You kept everything.
$100 every now and then or something. Or it pays for things, but we just don't mix our money.
Wow, so you've kept it separate this whole time.
I don't know what he's got, and he damn sure doesn't know what I have.
Wow. Huh.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's worked out so far. Really.
Huh. Well, if it's worked for 28 years, you might want to just keep it for the next 28 years.
Keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Well, the town of Brady has changed a lot in all these years, Aunt Jewell, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it has, yeah.
But you still.
But the thing, I don't have any kids, but I will say this: that I don't know of a family anywhere that's got more good nieces and nephews than I do.
No.
I love them all.
Oh, we love you
and
too.
all of you are good to me.
Oh.
We love you, Kat.
So it's been worth the ride. I'm glad I didn't have a kid. I never wanted any kids.
Huh. And then here you are, the family matriarch, and you never had any kids. And you never had any kids.
But I love them and leave them. So I don't have
Well, maybe you're
I never did want to change diapers and little kids.
Yeah.
I remember when Johnny was a baby, and well, of course we had several before him that I could hold and all. And I was holding him and rocking him one day, or he had his bottle or something, and he threw up all over me, and I threw up back on him. I've always just threw up so easy, you know. And Mama I screamed, Mama, get in here. She said, what in the world's going on? I said, well, he threw up on me, and I just threw back. We had two things to clean up. And I never did change the dirty diaper. That's one thing I wouldn't do, but I did change them if they're wet, but I couldn't change a dirty one. The way I could change it was just hold them under the hose and wash them down. But it's been lots of fun.
Well, you have a lot of nieces and nephews that love you, though, Aunt Jewell, and
well, I do have a lot of good nieces and nephews.
You do. So you did something right in that department.
I got some pictures here I thought you might like to see.
All right.
We can go in the house. Do you know whose baby this is? I don't know whose kid that is. No name on the back, so I wish everybody would put names on. That wasn't Randy, is it, when he was little?
Well, that might be. I don't know who that is.
He looks familiar, but I don't know whose kid it is. But I've got some here that one of your granddad and that you might like. There's one. You might could blow that up and give to the others. That's Golden on his horse.
Now, what was his horse's name? Do you know?
I can't remember. I've been trying to think.
How old was he there, I wonder?
I think that it's probably before he and Irma got married.
He looks so young.
Yeah, and I think I want to say his horse was Red, but I don't. Some of them had a horse that's named Red.
Aunt Jewel, one last question. How many nieces and
And
nephews?
there's Irma and Inez Boyles.
Oh my goodness.
And here's Golden and Ray Holt. That's Golden on the,
Right here.
yeah. And Ray Holt, that's Barbara Fields' daddy.
Oh.
Aunt Jewel, have you lost track, or how many nieces and nephews are there?
I'm sure this, with the great, now I've got greats. There's Golden, and I think that's probably Wayne, I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
Are you ready to conclude, Jay? I think this concludes this interview with Jewel Jones Yarborough on May 20th, 2012 in Brady, Texas.
Any parting advice for us there, Aunt Jewel?
Do I?
Any parting advice for us?
Any secrets to your success or
Not really.
longevity?
Work hard, I guess. That's all I ever did. Work hard, and as my motto is, it's
Yeah.
not what you make, it's what you save.
There you go.
Very good. Well, thanks for talking with us.
Well, I've had fun.
Yeah, thank you for
When I'm
sharing.
6 foot under, I'll think about you.
We'll play your DVD on our TV, or and we'll listen to Mary E says, and we'll do our housework and listen to your voice and stuff.
Yeah, I just listen to her. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you, Aunt Jewel.
you bet.